I want to start by wishing each one of you a wonderful and Merry Christmas. It is an honor to be with you today in your homes and your living rooms. I'm joining you for this beautiful day, a day that we share in gifts, we share in family, but more so and of greater importance, we share in the love and commemoration of Jesus Christ. So thank you for sitting down with me. In our home, Santa Claus has just left, and so we are, I might be a little quiet, or I might be listening for some boys. They're still sleeping, and we want to make sure that continues to happen. But, over the last 3 weeks, we have spent, and really in this Advent season, this expectant coming of the Messiah, we have spent now this entire time in the Gospel of John, primarily the first chapter. It's an unusual text for the birth of Jesus, but John takes us to this reality that Jesus is eternal, that Jesus is part of the Godhead, that he was always there. But what I want us to focus on today occurs at the end of John chapter 1, and it's the calling of Nathanael. But what I want us to notice in this text in particular is Jesus' interaction with Nathanael, and this reality that sometimes the Christmas season is not as enjoyable, or it's very enjoyable for people, but that in every spectrum of life, every area of life, we can see Jesus is working to connect with us, to be a part of us, and to love us. And so I think that as we have looked forward, as we have been expecting the Messiah now for this season, I want us to conclude that with this reality that Jesus was wanting us even before we knew that we were wanting him. So let's go ahead and begin John chapter 1, verse 43. The next day, Jesus decided to go to Galilee. Now, as we walk through this text, John has really been highlighting several days. This chapter 1 has a multiple callings over multiple days, so it's kind of built up, and so that's where we're making a jump in time. It says he found Philip and said to him, "Follow me." That was Jesus said to Philip, "Follow me." Now Philip was from Bethsaida, the city of Andrew and Peter, and Philip found Nathanael and said to him, "We have found him on whom Moses in the law and also the prophets wrote, Jesus of Nazareth, the son of Joseph." And so we see that Philip makes this proclamation of who Jesus is. We're not given any details here about how Philip had that conviction, but we're going to build the belief that because of John the Baptist's teachings, Philip had an understanding. He knew, and he is looking forward to who John is prophesying about. Nathanael makes this comment, though. He says this, verse 46. Nathanael said, "Can anything good come out of Nazareth?" And Philip said, "Come and see." This is partway a struggle of belief, a struggle of what were the scriptures teaching. Part of this is a struggle that Nathanael's going to have with Jesus. The Messiah was not supposed to come from Nazareth. He was supposed to come from Bethlehem. And so part of this is a struggle that Nathanael's going to have. The other part of this, though, is that Nathanael, he kind of comes from, in a sense, the rival town of Nazareth. It would almost be like someone from Male High School looking to St. X and saying, "Can anyone good come from St. X?" There's that rivalry between those two schools. And that's the situation here. There's a rivalry. And so when Nathanael's looking at who Jesus is going to be, who Philip is saying Jesus is, he's immediately cast with doubt. Can this really be? This brings to my question, in my own life, are there rivalries that cause me to cast doubt? Are there internal struggles within my life, within me, that would cause me to cast doubt onto who Jesus is or to who God is and the power that they manifest? Oh, how easy it is to look and to say, can God really do? How easy it is to look and to feel or to emotionally or spiritually justify that maybe my God doesn't want to handle these situations, or that maybe he doesn't really want to get involved. Maybe he is up there and he's fine to stay there. And that's what John's writing about is Jesus was God who wanted to be involved. And so as Nathanael has this internal struggle of, could Jesus really have come from Nazareth? I question for myself, and I want you to question, do we have those internal struggles where we say, can Jesus really be? Can Jesus really do? Let's continue in our text. So Philip said, come and see. Verse 47, Jesus saw Nathanael coming toward him and said to him, behold, an Israelite indeed, in whom there is no deceit. Now, in order for us to have a better understanding of this, we have to go to our Old Testaments for a moment and remember who Israel was. Israel was the father of 12 children, who we get the 12 tribes of Israel from. But before that, Israel was a man named Jacob. Jacob meant heel grabber. When he was born, he was clutching his brother's heel. And so from the very beginning of his life, from the moment of, from conception even, it was this acknowledgement that he was always fighting to be recognized, always fighting for something. He wanted to be the attention. He wanted to be loved. He wanted to be valued like his older brother Esau was. And he never received that until he wrestled with God. And God changed his name and he said, now you'll be called Israel because you've wrestled with God. And so when Jesus looks to Nathanael and says, an Israelite indeed, in whose there is no deceit, what he's saying is, he says, there's no Jacob in you. There's no turmoil. There's no striving. There's not this heel grabbing like Jacob would. You, Nathanael, are a true Israelite. You're a true person who wrestles with God. And you're going to win. Oh boy, that speaks to me in this way that says, do I wrestle with God? Am I one who would strive with God, who would wrestle with what he teaches, would wrestle with what he's encouraging, what he's calling me to? Would I wrestle with him on those things? Or would I try to take the shortcut? Would I try to cheat the system? Would I try to go around and behind his back to get what I want done? That's what a Jacob did. But one day Jacob wrestled with God and he won. My question for you and for me is, do I wrestle with God or do I try to find shortcuts? I read a book recently called Take the Stairs, and the entire premise of the book was the reality that life, we fill it with shortcuts. We want to go the easy way. We want things to be easy. But life's not meant to be easy. There's meant to be a struggle. And so as I look at my life, do I struggle with God? Do I wrestle with him? Or do I just open up YouTube or my Bible app and say, well, I've read my Bible verse for the day. I might watch an encouraging video. Do I look at my relationship to God as something that's easy? Or do I strive? Do I wrestle? And do I say, God, I am really fighting right now to understand what you're calling me to, but I want to wrestle. Jesus looks to Nathanael and he says, you are one who wrestles with God. There's no deceit within you. And Nathanael says, how do you know me? That's verse 48. And Jesus said, before Philip called you, when you were under the fig tree, I saw you. Now, we probably struggle to understand the depth here or what's going on here. We're not told exactly. But most of the time that a fig tree is mentioned in the Bible, someone is sitting under the fig tree with the desire to grow spiritually. They're looking for something spiritual. They might be in prayer. They might be in study. So I'm going to build an assumption that when Nathanael was under the fig tree, the reason John mentions it is he understands that the fig tree was symbolic for Nathanael searching for who God is. He was searching for spiritual encounter. Now, maybe he had a spiritual moment. I don't know. But maybe he did. And maybe that's what builds into Nathanael's next comment. But maybe he was searching. Maybe he was one who was studying, who was praying, who was asking God, where are you? What are you doing in life? Well, those are questions that I know I've asked God. God, where are you? What are you doing? Are you concerned for these situations? Are you present in these moments? I wonder how often have I gone to the place of the fig tree and said, God, here I am. Let me experience a spiritual moment with you. God, may your Spirit consume me so that I can see and understand and gain greater love for you. Boy, when was the last time you did that? When was the last time that you sought God underneath the fig tree? Oh, that comes by sitting with the Word, that comes by sitting in prayer, that comes by moments of meditation. When was the last time that Jesus could look and could say, I saw you sitting with me? And so Jesus looks to Nathanael and he says, I saw you under the fig tree. Nathanael responds, Rabbi, you are the Son of God. You are the King of Israel. And Jesus answered, because I said to you, I saw you under the fig tree, do you believe? You will see greater things than these. When I look at this exchange, I see Nathanael calling Jesus there's three names in particular there. I don't really want to focus on them, but this is what I notice. Philip called Nathanael and he said, just come and see. Come and see who this Jesus is. Jesus encounters or has this moment with Nathanael, this spiritual connection. And Nathanael in that moment knows this is the one whom we've been waiting for. This is the one. My prayer for you is that you could have that same experience where you can look and can say, Jesus is the one who is the Son of God, who is the great teacher, where Jesus is the one who can be my life, who can live for me and live in my stead. And to use Nathanael's words here to say that you are the rabbi, you're the teacher, you're the Son of God, and that you're the King. Is Jesus your teacher? Is Jesus your King? And do you believe that Jesus is the Son of God? Those are questions that Nathanael had answered, and they're questions that we should have answered as well. The final moment in John chapter 1 comes when Jesus, he changes audience for a moment. In verse 50, he seems to be talking to Nathanael. That's a pretty well-grounded assumption based upon the singular version of you that he uses there. But when we jump to verse 51, And Jesus says, truly I say to you, you will see heaven open and the angels of God ascending and descending on the Son of Man. Jesus changes the perspective. And so instead of it being a you singular, you Nathaniel, verse 51 changes. And he says, you, the disciples, all of those who are within earshot of what I'm saying. He says, you are going to see greater things than what I just revealed to Nathaniel. You're going to see, and he goes back to Jacob, and he says, Jacob's ladder is an image we get in the Old Testament, where Jacob sees a ladder or a stairway, and he sees angels descending and ascending on this stairway. And Jesus alludes to that, but he changes. He says, the stairway that you're going to see is me. Friends, that is the story of Christmas. We can focus on the manger. We can focus on the virgin birth. We can focus on all of the beautiful details of the nativity. But the real power in Christmas is less in the nativity scene itself and more in the reality that Jesus Christ, God in the flesh, according to John, came to this earth to be the bridge, to be the connection, to be the staircase, the ladder, the rope, whatever it is, to be that connection between earth and heaven, between the divine and the human. That he became human so that we could become divine. I think the power that comes in that moment for us is the most beautiful power that I can imagine. You see, for us to be able to be God's children, to be connected to him, loved by him, we had to have that connection. And Jesus says, the greatest thing I'm going to show, the greatest thing you're going to see is that the connection that I'm building between the realm of heaven and earth is going to be me. We see that ultimately at the end of the gospel narrative when Jesus builds that connection in the cross. Oh, the cross that was despised and shamed, but the cross that became a ladder to heaven for you and for me. Today, as you enjoy your time with family, with friends, with loved ones, as we share in the celebration of the coming of the Messiah, the coming of the Christ, Jesus, may we be most mindful that he built the connection for us so that we could be with God. And may we be thankful for the great gift that came in a manger, the great gift that lived a beautiful life, the great gift that died selflessly for you and for me, and the great gift that came to life again, that resurrected, giving us a hope for an eternity together.